Good day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Helen Argyrou, or Helen Argyrou, and I'm a clinical psychologist and I practice energy medicine. If you've ever heard about the science behind energy, you are very, very lucky, because today you are going to learn even more. If you've never heard about the science behind energy, it's a brand new concept that many people are learning about, but actually it's been around since the beginning of time. There have been many ancient philosophers, seers, sages, mystics, very spiritually guided teachers, and very knowledgeable experts who have delved into the area of energy. For decades, centuries, even ancient civilizations explored the energy field and how it operates to optimize disease, how it gets infected, and how it actually decreases our power to be successful and satisfied in our lives. So today I'm going to share with you 3 specific things that are very interesting about how energy can be made visible in our health and our well-being. And it's really interesting to notice that these are not new findings. This is not really new research. As I've explained, there's a very big history in how the energy field around us actually changes the way we operate. Now, the very first thing I'm going to talk about is the nervous system and how the nervous system plays an important role in our evolution as a species, but also in our individual lives. It is really what governs us to either be healthy and organized, centered, and well-regulated. That's a very special word, and I'll explain more about it in a moment. And it's also the place where we can begin to understand ourselves as way beyond the mind and body as 2 separate things, but actually where it all comes together. The second thing I'm going to talk about is our electromagnetic field and how this explains what many of the psychics and the woohoo teachers and spiritual minded people speak a lot about, but actually there's deep science behind it, and now we have evidence that proves that this very important field around our bodies can actually get influenced in positive or negative ways. And as I mentioned, it's called the electromagnetic field. And it is very much where we begin to understand our energy body, which is beyond our physical body. The third thing I'm going to talk about is coherence. And coherence is a really interesting way of explaining how we come together to become a unified whole. And as human beings, we have obviously many different parts to us, and our bodies operate in many, many different functioning systems that come together and harmonize. And one of the most important ones is coherence. It's a very special state that clearly explains why the brain and the body must connect in order to create a certain kind of harmony. And when that happens, we have coherence, which is another way that we understand energy, because it's not something that you really see, but it's something that you can clearly understand as an influence to optimize your health and well-being. So let's get started. First of all, welcome to this 15-minute quick chat about the science behind energy medicine. How did I get into this, and why is it so interesting for us to explore this topic now in our lives? Well, for me, I started off as a clinical psychologist, studying for 7 years in the University of Stellenbosch back in South Africa. But when I became much more experienced in psychotherapy and in clinical studies, I began to understand some of the work of Jung. Carl Gustav Jung, you might know him, was a very famous Swiss psychiatrist who became also very interested in the deeper side, or the invisible side, of psychology. Psychology is already a science that doesn't explain itself directly, but it is actually a very interesting way for us to know there's more going on than what might appear. So in the beginning, we think we are just speaking, but actually we are communicating, and there's an entire set of layers to our communication that is way beyond what we might think to start off with. These deeper layers are what a lot of the psychologists and psychiatrists back in the day were studying. But Jung was different. He looked at the way it all comes together. He looked at the spiritual side of the human being. He looked at the soul. He looked at how do we develop and become the best version of ourselves. And how does that tie up with the entire cultural messages that we got from our country, our nationality, our ethnicity? What are the stories we've been told? What are the myths? How do we begin to investigate that connects us to all the other groups around the world. So all the countries, all the people of the world share what he called a collective unconsciousness, which feeds us information during our sleep, which influences us during our lives. And so for me, I also began to understand that there was a deeper side to psychology that I wanted to investigate more into. And by chance, I discovered a drum. And in drumming, I was exposed to these amazing West African drummers from different countries like Senegal, Mali, because I lived in South Africa at the time. I was born in Zimbabwe. And I had exposure to these incredibly talented percussionists who were playing rhythm and stepping into these exhilarated states. They were in these beautiful, beautiful bubble of energy that felt a little bit like ecstasy when you would watch them play, full of joy, sparkle, light coming off their body, big smiles on their faces when they were playing very complex rhythmic patterns. I'm sure you've already heard some of these drummers around the world. They often play an instrument called the djembe, which is a very special tradition, an indigenous knowledge system from Africa, which really speaks to the fact that in that moment, this person is operating at a very high frequency, being able to process information on many different levels in order to play a rhythmic pattern that then harmonizes with maybe 10 or 20 other drummers around the circle and actually takes the entire sound of orchestral percussion of all these drums into a totally new frequency. This was the skill of the solo drummer or the djembefola, or the drummer who is appointed to be the master of that ceremony or that space of play. And this was for me fascinating as a psychologist, and it took me down a very strong path into sound, vibration, rhythm, and drumming. And this is why I became fascinated by how rhythm changes consciousness. And what I realized is that not only can rhythm advance consciousness, but we are always, in every single second of our lives, influenced by rhythm. We are born through the rhythm of the spinal fluid moving through the back of the body before we have ears to hear as fetus inside the womb of our mothers. We are also then exposed to sound and the beating of her heart. We come into the world filled with rhythmic vibrational information, stimulation that helps us grow. We begin to become connected to the world through the rhythms of nature, through the rhythms of the ocean, the rhythm of our feet walking, the rhythm of life. And of course, many things can take us out of synchronization. And this is where my career took off into very specialized fields of study around how this can happen. So now I work with kids with special needs. I work with adults. I work with all kinds of people from all over the world in helping them come back into rhythm with themselves, with the world, and with each other, but also to learn this very profound art of regulating their central nervous system. Remember I said I was going to talk to you about that? So the very first thing we need to expand on is the nervous system and how it explains energy to us. For example, if you are in a very, very frustrated state, it's very possible that you're not thinking very well or feeling very happy or doing things that are very constructive. In fact, when you feel frustrated or even angry, it's very easy for you to have very negative thoughts, to have a very bad feeling, and or to begin to do things in a very discombobulated or disorganized way, or maybe even to do things in an aggressive way, like you might kick the door, or you might throw a piece of paper down, or you might go lie on your bed in a huff, and there you see how your whole state changes. And the nervous system is really the reason why. When we have a negative situation around us, our nervous system really struggles to process what's happened, and it needs some time. And this is where we can see our energy changes. It's no longer just our thoughts. It's our thoughts, our feelings, and our entire set of actions that start to vibrate to a different frequency, because anger or frustration is a different frequency. And this has been tested, and we've seen that, in fact, anger is a state of incoherence, meaning we can always find ourselves in more disarray or more frustration or more disorganization when we are in those states, as opposed to more positive ones. So the central nervous system, for example, a really great tip here, can respond to frequencies and sound more readily than many other things. The vagus nerve sitting behind the eyes is a brilliant way to stimulate yourself back into a state of peace and calm. Lie down on your bed, drop 2 little pressure bean bags or little cucumbers onto your eyes, sit and relax and listen to a very specific frequency, 532 hertz, while you really reorganize and re-centralize your central nervous system. This is going to help you regulate that frustration or that anger so that it can process in your body and then hopefully release if you can let it go or resolve whatever it was that started to frustrate you. This is a very important tip because it's telling us that in order to really get ourselves out of a frustrated place, we have to get centered. And this is how important our energy is, because when we feel differently, we can only change that feeling if we organize ourselves through our central nervous system by calming it down. There's too much information, there's too much feeling, there's too much triggering that's happened, and there's a lot of things going on psychologically, emotionally that take us out of orbit. Another quick tip is to actually think about yourself if you've ever had an accident or if you've ever been stressed out to a point where you don't know what to do. That's when you want to think about the possibility that you might be reacting to something that's happened even before. And if that's the case, you see many repetitions, you might have something called post-traumatic stress if it's been a particularly stressful situation. And one thing they found recently, amazing research, is that the frequency of a beehive can totally transform the reticular activating system, which is part of the brain that's responding when you are in that state. So if any of you have been in that kind of situation or you are in it now, I suggest you go and speak to somebody about it. And if you need some help, reach out to me and I'll be very happy to help you with some sound and very specific vibrational frequencies that can help you. And now onto the electromagnetic field. You know that you all have something called an aura, and this is a field of energy around the body. There's some fascinating research by the Gallup Institute that has now confirmed that when two people really like each other, those two bubbles of energy start to connect in the most interesting way. There is information that gets passed between them, this type of telepathic communication, telling us that in fact we are way more than our physical bodies. There is an energy field around us that is constantly in action, constantly communicating with what's around us and outside of us, and actually can even communicate with very specific people through intention, strong-minded thinking, and strong affection. And so this electromagnetic field needs to be cleaned regularly, just like you clean your body. I hope you detox. Or if you clean your mind, I hope you go and pray or rest or sleep. And I hope you clean your emotion by confessing certain things or explaining what you felt, but then letting those feelings go. The electromagnetic field needs very much the same kind of spring cleaning. And one way to do that is to meet with people that actually help you work your auric field to clear away residue or leftover hanging on type aspects that might get stuck to you from difficult times in your life or things that you've struggled to experience. The auric cleansing process can be very different in the hands of many different people that do it, but you yourself can also clear your own aura with very specific practices. When you rest and rejuvenate, that's one thing that you're trying to do, but sometimes you need deeper work if you've had deeper things going on for you, because we do have a tendency to collect some of that negative energy in our auric field. And until we can clear it, it carries a whole lot of baggage along with us wherever we go. So try and investigate that a little bit more, aura cleansing and how you can do it. It's great if you put sprinkled water all around your body, or water itself can be a great way to clear your auric field. But as I mentioned, there might be certain things you have to work very specifically to release. And now on to the third point, which was coherence. Coherence is one of the most fascinating things I've discovered in my career, and it's actually something that can be practiced by all age groups. And it's the simplest way for a child to begin to learn how to work with this part of themselves through prayer or through being grateful or being taught certain kinds of appreciation, manners, through magic words, for example, like thank you and please. But it's also something we learn to do more of as adults, as we become more and more gracious, more and more grateful for all the challenges we have, but also all the ways that the challenges catalyze growth and power and new thought and new parts of our personality to grow. So coherence speaks about this amazing mental state that connects with the heart space in a feeling of joy or safety. So when your heart and your mind are resonating together, it is said that they create a frequency that is coherent. This means that when you are thinking good thoughts and in your heart you are appreciative of that particular experience that's generating the good thoughts, you create a state of coherence. There are many institutes now that practice this, but one of the founders was the Heart Math Institute, a really interesting group that started to study the power of coherence and how it can totally change healing and health and well-being. This means if you've been through a tough time, or you've had a loss, or someone you've truly liked and appreciated has left your life, or perhaps you've had a disappointment. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe a friend is no longer keeping company with you. Maybe you didn't get that specific prize or that car you worked hard for, or something else in your life created some kind of misfortune. One very good practice is to sit down in the mornings and really start to think about something that does create peace, safety, and appreciation for you. And then start to imagine that, visualize it strongly in your mind, and you will see you are now working with energy. You are imagining intentionally something that generates positivity in thought and now positivity in your emotion. Start to connect with your heart and tune in deeply to that feeling of joy or appreciation or satisfaction from that particular object or experience that you appreciate. Make sure it's not something tainted or contaminated by some kind of but, or if only, try and keep it maybe even like a pet or a special place you like to visit, or a garden, for example, the ocean, and even better, maybe a specific person that you love and cherish. Make sure that you get a clear picture in your mind, think about it, be appreciative of it, and then feel that feeling. And as you begin to feel it, stay there for at least 17 seconds. You will see it changes your energy. There are deeper practices like Ho'oponopono, which take this idea even further, where you begin to say, I am sorry, thank you very much, I love you, and please forgive me, as certain prayer triggers that have been tested through science to actually change our entire system of regulation. Remember, we spoke about the central nervous system. This starts to calm the central nervous system and the reticular activating system, but then it also creates a frequency of rest and gratitude. I hope this has been helpful for you. The science behind energy medicine is way more expansive than what I've been able to share with you here today. So if you'd like to know more, make sure you visit helenargyrou.com and let's do a quick recap on what we learned today. Number one, the central nervous system is always operating and it needs your help to regulate. And this means you need to give yourself certain kinds of downtime, or maybe frequency medicine, energy medicine, be around people you love and enjoy, but also give yourself specific attention when you are not in a happy state. Second thing we learned about was the electromagnetic field and how your auric field, your energy body around your physical body, needs to be cleaned every now and again. Pay attention to this. Think about water. Do some research and see how you can do that. The third thing we learned about was coherence and how thinking about something we cherish, feeling that feeling, and connecting these two for at least 17 seconds takes us into a peak state of coherence. And this can help us tremendously in healing, accelerating recovery processes, and becoming much more well-adjusted to things that have created any kind of misfortune for us. I want to thank you for paying attention here. I look forward to any question or comment you might have. And thank you so much to the Global Speakers Talk platform for this opportunity to share this great information with you. And remember, there's way more than what I've shared. So if you want to head on over to the YouTube channel that I run, it's called ahaintelligence.com. And I would love to share with you there all the wonderful videos, and make sure you check out the one that went viral with me and Daniela. So that's Helen and Daniela where we're playing the djembe drum, and we had 1 million views or more on that video. It would be great to share it with you. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care.